Welcome back. If you only just joined us, you're watching NBC One and you're tuned in to the Daily Roundup with Nina. We now turn our focus to the Ministry of Information and Communication Technologies campaign as part of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence running from the 25th of November to December 10th each year. Now, this year's theme, Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls, highlights the urgent need to tackle the growing threats faced online, ranging from harassment to cyberbullying to image-based abuse. Now, this initiative aims to raise awareness, promote prevention, and encourage action against all forms of gender-based violence in Namibia, including digital violence. To help us understand the Ministry's role, strategies, and expected impact, we're joined by Shasima Uugulu, the Deputy Director of the Production Division at the Ministry, who's been at the forefront of driving the campaign's message. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Nina, and good evening to NBC viewers. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, to begin with, perhaps briefly, you can just explain this year's focus of the 16 Days of Activism Against GBV campaign and the message that the Ministry is really aiming to highlight.
Yeah, thank you. I think, first of all, let's build context. Why the 16 Days of Activism? I think we have to understand that this is an international campaign which is recognized worldwide. All countries do implement the 16 Days of Activism, and this is just the first time that MICT is really coming on board to say, let's support the Ministry of Gender, which is the main driver of GBV issues. But then as MICT, we have a responsibility to educate and inform the nation. So that is why then we come in to say, we are going to work with the Ministry of Gender to ensure that we create awareness about the 16 Days of Activism, which then starts on the 25th of November to the 10th of December. So we are really partnering with the Ministry of Gender to ensure that our people understand the essence of why the 16 Days of Activism are celebrated as a campaign internationally, that we create awareness. And this year's theme is the one that now speaks to unite to end digital violence against women and girls. That's why really as a ministry, for the past 2 months, we've been running the campaign called Ethical Use of Social Media. And it ties in very well with this current theme for this year. So now, what we have noticed that if you go on social media, there's so much hate. There's so much abuse in terms of how our women are being targeted. You find that somebody break up with a partner, and then the first thing that they do, they would want to share their intimate photos online. That is digital abuse. You find that there are those that are harassing women and girls online, sexual harassment, threats online, and so forth. And that is why we are really coming together with the Ministry of Gender to say, let's educate our people on the dangers of digital violence, because we may only be speaking about physical violence, but there is a whole new area where we need to come together as a nation and talk about digital violence, where our women and girls are really exposed to this on a daily occurrence, and then they really don't understand how to react, because now somebody feel they are threatened online, they do not understand what is the recourse and so forth. So we want to really just educate our people on how does digital violence manifest itself? How does it look like? We explain it in basic forms. That's why, if you remember, just on Friday, our minister hosted the Young Women in Politics, and as well as the Sundowner for Influencers. And this was really just to bring together influencers and young women in politics to come together and recognize the need to tackle digital violence, and also just to appreciate that there's so much happening on digital spaces where we need to come together as a people and try to find solutions to end digital violence.
You mentioned a really great question here. What is digital violence? How does it happen? What does it look like? And I think, as you mentioned, the whole purpose of the campaign is to sensitize people to exactly what that is. Because sometimes we can overlook it and we think, it's just, a little bit of harassment, a little bit of bullying, but there's layers to it and there's more depth to it. So let's unpack that. What does it look like? How does it unfold?
As I said earlier, to say that, it may start small, where, for example, an older man may be grooming a young girl online, and the girl may be sharing their photos with this older man without any recourse or understanding to say what they are being exposed to is actually digital abuse. Then again, it could be somebody stalking them online, you know. They are DMing them, and you know, and you could see that these are unwanted advances. But the person continuously harasses them, and then sometimes they are even threatened online, especially those that are in public spaces. You may be a journalist, you may be an influencer, you are out there, your images. Some people are even being impersonated online, and as such, they may not be aware that what they are being subjected to is digital abuse. And as such, if during the 16 days of activism, then it's important that as stakeholders we come together to raise awareness about the danger of online abuse. But of course, you would remember that on the 4th of June, the government launched what we call hashtag NGBV campaign. So now that is running for the next 6 months. So this time then is really just for us to amplify our message, to encourage a lot of stakeholders to come on board, to understand why we need to bring attention to the issue of digital abuse.
Talk to us about perhaps any initiatives during these 16 days of activism, outside of what you've already done now going forward towards the 10th of December, that you're still planning to undertake as a ministry to you know, further spearhead the campaign.
Yeah, as I said that we have really partnered with the Ministry of Gender. So, of course, we are organizing what we call the 5th Men Conference, where we are going to talk to men about the need to be part of the solution. And of course, men really want to be part of the solution. And there is this idea to say, you know, we always talk about women being abused, but on the other, when you flip the coin, you may find that some men are also being abused. So during this conference, which is happening in Katima Mulilo, we are going to tackle the issues, the core roots of gender-based violence, and really encouragement to be part of the solution. So that is one of the main issues that we are doing this. But of course, the other events that have already taken place is the Influencers Sundowner, where we invited influencers and say, for the next 90 days, we want you to be posting every Friday content that speaks to ethical use of social media, because that is what we want to promote. There is so much hate on social media. There is so much threats on social media. There are people insulting each other. There is even issues of tribalism on social media. But when we unite as a nation, especially during this period, we are then able to sensitize each other to say, let's unite to end digital abuse against women and children. Of course, you remember that even our Miss Namibia was subjected to a lot of online abuse, negativity. And only through our people standing up together and uniting to say, no, whatever is happening is not right. We are one people, we are one nation, let's come together, let's unite and protect our ambassador. So that is what we really are about.
Beyond the 16 days, Mr. Uugulu, what long-term communication plan does the ministry have to ensure consistent advocacy and continued public engagement when it comes to gender-based violence issues? Yeah,
as I said, that the 16 days is really just to amplify the message. But we have a campaign called hashtag NGBV Namibia. Now, what is going to be happening is that we are going to be having focus group discussions at schools, at universities, in communities, where we are really just trying to discuss with our people what are the root causes of gender-based violence in our society and how can we address it, because we want to find community-based solutions. And as well, we want to host debates where you have a group of young people just debating on issues of GBV. How can we end it? Because it's only by listening to our people, by engaging them, that we are able to find community-inspired solutions. Because as a government, we can't really prescribe to community to say, you must not do A and B. But then when the community stand up by themselves and say, this is wrong, let's find a solution to GBV. Most of us as Namibians, you may have known somebody who is a victim of GBV, who is going through GBV.
Or even a perpetrator.
Even a perpetrator, yes, of course. But when we come together, we are able to find community-based solutions to this, because Otherwise, if we don't tackle it together, it will keep increasing. GBV cases will keep increasing. Only by discussing and understanding why is it happening, what can be done, and as individuals, what is it that you can do to ensure that maybe you find your friend is in a relationship which is, you know, is toxic, or maybe as a girl you find that your friend today she was brought home by a Benz, tomorrow she's in a Amarok, and you can tell really that, you know, she's having multiple partners. Maybe it's time that you start talking to your friend, because by the time you say...
and also the men talking to their friends about having multiple girlfriends.
Of course. So it's all of us that have to really talk to each other. Peer-to-peer talking is very, very important, that so that we find solution to GBV.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here this evening, and we wish you all the best with the rest of the campaign. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for having me. All right.
Well, that was Mr. Uugulu from the Ministry of Information Communication Technology speaking to us about the 16 days of activism against GBV campaign that they have ongoing in collaboration with the Ministry of Gender. We have one more conversation for you this evening before